Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, Disney decided to remake Snow White, and then watched in horror as the remake turned into a train wreck so spectacular it made the evil queen's poison apple look like a sensible snack choice.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Between Rachel Zegler's PR disasters, CGI dwarves that looked like Smeagol's support group, and a plot somehow less coherent than a drunk girl's 2 a.m. voice note to her ex, the film flopped harder than a medieval peasant succumbing to the plague. But here's the part most people don't know. The original Snow White story has always been a scandalous disaster, long before Disney sprinkled some fairy godmother magic on it, and it became a 1937 hit. Let's take it way back to the OG Snow White herself, a real-life 16th century German countess. Her name, Margarete von Waldeck. Born in 1533 to German nobility, Margarete von Waldeck had everything going for her: blinding beauty and family wealth, which by now you already know are magnets of doom. Her family's copper mines made them rich by exploiting child laborers. Historians speculate that these hunched, malnourished, orphaned little boys were the real-life inspiration behind the 7 dwarfs. How merry! Margaret's mother died when she was 5, and Daddy Dearest, who couldn't endure a moment of loneliness, quickly remarried a woman with all the warmth of a tax audit. Surprise! Margaret's stepmother hated her. Sound familiar?
And there you will kill her.
So naturally, in her teens, Margaret was exiled to a foreign court in Brussels, where her beauty caught the eye of multiple suitors, including none other than the future King Philip II of Spain. Yes, that's Spain. Now, royal attention might sound dreamy, until you realize your potential engagement could ignite a political firestorm across Europe. Think Game of Thrones, but with corsets and arsenic. Someone didn't want Spain getting chummy with German nobility. So somewhere between royal gossip, courtly sabotage, and power-hungry men in tights, poor Margaret was caught in the whirlwind and suddenly fell violently ill. Historians believe she was poisoned, subtly, slowly, the kind of death that creeps in with shaking hands, weak limbs, and very pale skin. Snow White skin. Word on the street is that her fingers shook feebly as she wrote her will before her death. So while she didn't choke on an apple, her end was just as tragic, and possibly far more intentional. So the next time someone says fairy tales are innocent, remind them that the original Snow White may have been an exiled teenager who was later murdered for being too hot to handle. Now, if you thought that was a grim tale, let's head over to Italy, where the Italians took the Snow White story and tossed in a lot of drama. They called it the Crystal Casket, and it has more red flags than a communist parade. Meet Ermelina, a 12-year-old beauty sent to school by her widower father. Her teacher, let's call her Desperado, takes one look at her father's fancy carriage and Ermelina's expensive shoes and said to herself, "I want that nice life." And she sets a plan in motion that would make Cersei Lannister chuckle. Every day, she unleashes her charm on Ermelina, commending her politeness in front of the whole class, praising her exquisite fashion sense, and telling everyone to be like Ermelina. Ermelina, who had not been bestowed this much attention since her mother died, could not help feeling loved. And every day, when school time was over, Desperado would ask Ermelina about her father and urge her to convince her father to marry her so they could be one big, happy family. Innocent Ermelina. What did she know? The little girl did exactly as her teacher told her. She sang her teacher's good deeds to her father's ears and told her father that she wanted her teacher to be her stepmama. At first, her father resisted. The wise man had seen enough life to know it was a bad idea, but Ermelina couldn't take a hint, even if it hit her on the face. Fast forward a few months later, and her father caves in and marries Desperado, and like every cautionary tale ever, the mask drops the moment the ring is on. Suddenly, Ermelina finds herself forced to wear peasant clothes. Her schooling is discontinued, and she is mandated to spend her education time watering basil on a death-trap terrace like some medieval Cinderella. And this is where the drama kicks in. Ermelina takes one look at the tricky terrace, and she starts crying because she knows that just one false step, and she would fall down the cliff to certain death. And naturally, at that precise moment, a gigantic eagle swoops in from nowhere and asks her why she is crying. When Ermelina explained in between sobs how her stepmother was making her life miserable, the eagle is like, "Hop on, kid. Let me take you to a safe place, away from all this BS. The eagle takes Ermelina to a glittery crystal mansion owned by emotionally available fairies who adopt Ermelina as their love child. They adore her. They pamper her. They give her just one rule: don't open the door for anyone while we're out. The eagle, suffering from an overdose of savior's complex, couldn't help a little pettiness. So it went back to Desperado and bragged about how it saved Ermelina, who was now receiving princess treatment in a crystal mansion. Desperado went into a raging fit. The plan was Ermelina had to die, so she hires Karen the witch to off Ermelina. Karen's first attempt poisoned sweetmeats delivered by a servant, aka the witch in a servant disguise, and so when the fairies were away on business, Karen knocked on the door of the crystal mansion. Ermelina looked out the window and saw one of her father's servants with sweetmeats. The servant said her father was so worried about her and asked that they bring these sweetmeats for her. Ermelina's like, "I shouldn't open the door, but sweetmeat. I love sweetmeat, and I know this servant." Ermelina opens the door, takes one bite, dies instantly. The witch transforms, and with a malevolent laughter vanishes into thin air. The fairies come back to see Ermelina dead. They revive her by taking the meat out of her mouth, but warn her severely not to open the door ever again to any stranger. Word gets back to Desperado that Ermelina is still alive. Desperado sends Karen the witch a mafia-style threat: finish the job or there will be dire consequences. So Karen, who happened to be a finalist in Project Runway's Hell Edition, whipped up a Gorg-cursed corset, changed her disguise to the family's tailoress, and returned to knock on the crystal mansion. Ermelina took one look out of the window and she couldn't resist, because she saw couture. So she opens the door, and just as she wore the dress, she died. Again. When the fairies come back this time and see Ermelina dead, they try to bring her back to life, but not even an advanced Heimlich maneuver could bring the poor girl back to life. So in tearful frustration, they bundle Ermelina's body into a glass Gucci casket with all the bells and whistles. Picture a casket with an exterior made of 24-carat gold, precious gems, real diamond stones, and an interior made of sea silk, golden threads, and a garland of flowers. Quite modest. Then they place this casket on a horse, with magic wands, of course, and send the horse galloping away. A young king manages to stop this horse and takes it to his castle because he fell in love with Ermelina's dead form at first sight. That corset must have been a smoking hot number. Ermelina's glass casket is taken to the king's chambers, where he adores her day and night. One day, while one of the chambermaids was changing Ermelina's now dusty corset, Ermelina sprang back to life. When the king finds out that Ermelina is now alive, he is thrilled. "I loved you dead, I'll love you alive, let's wed." Ermelina, fresh out of a coffin and too near deaths, is delighted, and they marry, because nothing screams romance like "I adored your corpse in my bedroom." So yes, Snow White's story has always been grim, pun intended. She's been poisoned, hunted, hidden, and politically targeted across continents and centuries, but no version has managed to bury her quite as deeply as the 2025 Disney remake. Because when you strip away the historical intrigue, the political assassinations, the cultural lore, and the whispers of women betrayed by those closest to them, and instead replace it with CGI chaos, forced girl boss energy, and a lead actress dunking on the original prince like he'd ghosted her on Hinge, you don't get a reimagining, you get a eulogy. And darling, even the poisoned apple is tired of being dragged into this drama. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or scream into the void, whichever feels more cathartic. See you in the next video, assuming I haven't trauma dumped my therapist into a coma.